they saw this creature wading through the water at chest level.
It is more real than it is fake.
Not only did Dan Gordon in 1982 see a creature cross the road in front of his police car, he was with another officer at the time, who remains anonymous, who corroborated it.
Here's this creature standing there, 7.5, 8 foot tall, 400 pounds, maybe more, maybe a smidgen less.
A lot of people talk about the film. What they forget to talk about is the tracks found afterwards.
So what was your name and what brings you to the event today?
My name is Andy Gordon. My brother Dan was one of the cops that saw, had a sighting down by the South Bay.
Okay. So tell us kind of a little bit about that sighting and kind of from, obviously you probably have a little bit more of a story from your brother's experience. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, he and the other fellow cop were driving down on patrol, and all of a sudden this creature jumped off the ledge, ran across the road, then over the guardrail down to the bank, and my brother stopped the car and went out to see what it was and come back, and the other cop said, boy, that was some bear, and my brother said that was no bear. You know, I have to believe that he saw something, yes, definitely.
So that would make you a Bigfoot believer?
Yes.
All right. And so I'm assuming this isn't the first time you've been at this event?
Oh, no.
Being from the area?
I live here, yeah.
So what would you say is, maybe it's changed throughout the years, but what's your favorite part about this event?
Just talking with people, meeting people, and you know, sharing stories. Like I talked to a few of the investigators, and they actually had a visitation. They had a sighting out within a quarter mile where I live, out Winters Road area.
Very good. And is there anything else that you want to tell the people at home about why they should believe in Bigfoot and what kind of compelling evidence is out there?
Well, I'd have to believe my brother that he saw something. You know, he would never not lie about something like that. He held it in for a while because he figured nobody would ever believe him.
Well, it's taboo.
Yeah, and you know, unfortunately, he's passed away a few years ago, and he always said, before I pass, I hope I get exonerated. Somebody finds it. You know.
Well, that's what everybody here is looking for, right?
That's right. That's right.
Paul Bartholomew. I live in Whitehall, New York, and I've been studying UFOs and Bigfoot and various paranormal phenomena for most of my life. Back in 1973, there was a major UFO outbreak in this region, in the Glens Falls region, all the way down into Pascagoula, Mississippi, Coyne helicopter case in Ohio. And so we had this massive UFO flap. And up in Glen Lake, New York, there was something that landed at the La Cabana restaurant, the former La Cabana restaurant. And there's a famous photo of Jack Bergeron pointing to these two concentric circles that were sort of charred into his driveway, his dirt driveway. The hot water taps in the restaurant ran cold, and the cold water taps ran hot for about 3 weeks following the incident. So it was a very interesting UFO experience, and I became very interested in the UFO phenomena from that. And then in 1976, we had a major Bigfoot incident on Abear Road in rural Whitehall, New York. And I became interested in the Bigfoot phenomena because now it wasn't in the Pacific Northwest. The phenomenon was right here in our backyards. So we found out that there was a rich history and often underlooked in this region of stone giants, wendigos, various, Samuel Champlain talked about the gugu. So we have various historical data for the creature in this area. So in 73 and 76 is when I became involved in this type of research.
Obviously there's the story of right here in Whitehall, the story of the police officer seeing Bigfoot. What are some of the different documentations or some of the more credible evidences you've seen in kind of the Northeast?
In the Bigfoot phenomena, we have what I call confirmation sightings. And that's like Cliff Sparks' sighting in 1975 at the Country Club. That's like sightings like Dan Gordon's. And not only did Dan Gordon in 1982 see a creature cross the road in front of his police car, he was with another officer at the time, who remains anonymous, who corroborated it. And he took a polygraph There's almost nothing else he can do to further prove his story. But there was an incident that took place in 2003, and it was up in the Dresden area, and a couple of Hong Kong nationals who actually worked in town were fishing up by Dresden, and they saw this creature wading through the water at chest level. Well, I said to him, my goodness, I said, what did you guys do? And he says, well, we went fishing. The beauty of that report, the confirmation part of that report, is they were from an area where it wasn't unusual to see primate type creatures. So they just sort of shrugged it off and said, well, we just didn't realize there were creatures in this area. Those are those confirmation sightings. They didn't really know how important their sighting was. And then you can add to that the many castings that have been made, some corroborating, being very consistent in certain areas, done by different researchers. So I think there's quite a bit of evidence that this is a real phenomenon.
Just start by saying your name, and then we'll talk a little bit about your experiences with Bigfoot.
My name is Brian Gosselin. I'm a local here. I'm the police officer back in August of 1976 that had the up-close personal encounter out on Abear Road. And after that fact, there was people older than me at the time, because I was 24. Now I'm almost 72. That came forward, and for a good month after the initial sighting on Abear Road, there were reports on a certain road, would be County Route 11 and Abear Road, probably another dozen or so reports of people seeing things, stepping across fences you and I got to climb across. My wife and I wrote a book. It's called Abear Road, The True Story, because the original story on documentaries and books that have been written is so far-fetched and so far out of whack. They've taken the main purpose for the book we wrote is the facts, because I'm the one that had the encounter, not everybody else. My words are my words, not your words. We're still into it big time. In fact, I got a couple casts on the table over there, which is a godsend to us, because we haven't come down here anything new since 1997 or 98. And that was at West Mountain. These two are from this July. And it's two different ones in the same location. A gentleman owns a camp back in here, and he's from Connecticut. He wanted us to investigate it, and we did. He called us near the end of June, and I don't know if you guys are from the area, but all the rain we had up here was tremendous. So we went down, I think it was the first week and a half of July, down in the area. I did find bear tracks that was headed down this really steep embankment. Then it goes into a marshy bog full of hemlock, 99% hemlock in there. You know what that's like walking on for us, a waterbed. And we couldn't leave any tracks whatsoever, so my wife and I were doing our investigating, and she found one on the back side of the tree, and the one I found was off the left-hand side of the tree in the front, and they're two different size tracks, and I take it as an adolescent, and a female, an adult. And the guy actually come up from Connecticut today, because he's got a camp back there, and this all transpired while he's in his outhouse outside his camp. And he was scared the caboodles out of it. And so we went over and said, we'll do an investigation, which we did. And we actually come up with two casts. We've never been able to do that before. We've got a lot of casts, not here. We've only got a handful here, but to find more than one, that was a godsend, especially for the new festival. And if you want to look at the casts, you can. They're right there on the table.
Yeah, we definitely will. And so obviously your story was something that really kind of was, it brought a lot of news to the town.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of news to the Bigfoot community.
Yeah.
That night, I mean, what were kind of your first impressions when you saw it? I mean, what was first running through your mind?
Now, I was the second night. I was off duty, my own car. The night before I was on duty, I couldn't leave the village unless I were in pursuit or backing up a call that the troopers or sheriffs couldn't cover. And the guys that come in just happened to be my brother and a friend of his. And my dad had just gotten off duty. It was midnight or so after the fact. And they come in and told me, and I thought they were full of kapooey. And my encounter, the night I had my encounter, the trooper that was out there with me, he was on duty. He was probably 2,000 feet away from me or so, up on top of a hill, out in a field a little bit, 50 feet off the road, where I was 400 feet or so out in a field that hadn't been mowed that year by the farmers. My first thought was, you got to live it with me, because something told me to turn my spotlight on now. Something just told me to do it, and right off the kitty corner of my car, here's this creature standing there, 7.5, 8 foot tall, 400 pounds, maybe more, maybe a smidgen less, staring at me. And as soon as I hit it with my spotlight, it brought its hands up like this, put its head back, and just let out such a deep, guttural, from the bottom to the top of the scale. And it lasted probably 10, 15 seconds. And at 30 feet, I guesstimated it was 30 feet. It was just like me blowing a tuba right directly in your face. I could feel it in my chest. I had my hand up, the hammer pulled back on the gun, and all I could hear in my head, believe it or not, is, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm not going to hurt you. And while all this is going on, I'm standing there looking at something that don't exist. I didn't go out as a complete non-believer. Why should I disbelieve my brother, his friend, my father, who was a sergeant here in Whitehall, 2 New York State troopers, 2 deputy sheriffs that all saw it? Why should I doubt them? But I went out for my own curiosity, and it's the trooper that went out with me, and he was on duty, went out for my own curiosity, and thank God I stayed where I did. For months and months and months after that, we were all made fun of, and and these same guys that are made fun of me are some of not the festival, but different things we used to have in the park, whittling little Sasquatches and all that stuff, making money off it, see. And I embarrassed one guy so bad that the people that were buying things put them right back down and walked away from the table. I said, there's one of the guys who used to make fun of me all the time, and the rest of the family. But anyway, you'll hear the whole complete story at 4 o'clock. I'll relive it again. I'll never forget it. Right from the instance I left that road and get out in that field, the whole 9 yards, it's etched up here forever. I couldn't trim them up because the stuff we used was so brittle. I tried, getting the outline. It started breaking off too much, and I said, no, I'm not going to leave them as they are.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But I mean, to get one just before the festival, which in itself is a miracle.
Yeah.
And a double. That's 2 different ones right there, as you can tell, just by the size.
Yeah.
Adolescent and adult, possibly. That's my guesstimation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big foot.
Yeah, if you could just tell us who you are, where you're from, and what brings you to Whitehall.
Well, I'm Steve Coles, a Sasquatch detective. I've been in Bigfoot research since 1998. I'm a resident of the capital area. I have been to 46 of the 50 states in my search for this thing, and I predominantly research in New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, occasionally in Pennsylvania as well.
We're from New Hampshire, so we're following a story that happened 20 years ago, and it kind of leads us here to the whole Bigfoot thing. Not sure if you're familiar with the Danville Devil Monkey of 2001.
I'm vaguely familiar with
Okay.
that.
So what happened was, real quick in a nutshell, fire chief saw a monkey jump out of a tree, a big 8-foot monkey, jump back. The whole town, there was reported sightings. Law enforcement, media was all over it. As a matter of fact, a couple town employees were about to go on to the Today Show during the commercial break. Instead of cutting to that bit, they went to the planes crashing in the World Trade Center, so it was dropped. So my thing is, well, if you're not familiar with it, I guess that's fine, because my connection was trying to find out if there's man-apes coming down into southern New Hampshire, the East Coast. They're going to be coming from the Adirondacks, right? I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm sure that each state probably has a very small indigenous population of them. Where some of the states, I can't say all of them. What I would be, as an investigator and a professional investigator as well, I would be very concerned about the description of what was seen, whether or not perhaps somebody brought a primate. I would have to look at the primate laws in New Hampshire, because I'm not sure. In New York State, it's illegal to own a primate. You have to have a zookeeper's license, so that makes it very difficult.
Well, that was one of the things. Was it a wild, a pet monkey that escaped? Nobody came to own it or claim it, and it just.
What you're going to understand too is that a lot of these people will take these primates in as a baby. Then as they get older, they get harder to handle. So that may be we're just going to dump it off here and let it be.
Right, and let Mother Nature take care of it. Let me ask you: is the that the film from what was it 1969?
68.
68. Is it real?
I believe there are inclinations to me that it is more real than it is fake. I know there have been some claims of people in the past saying that I don't believe their claims. However, I always remain on the fence about it, but I'm more to the positive of it than not. Because a lot of people talk about the film. What they forget to talk about is the tracks found afterwards.
Right.
And that's, something that people gloss over. Well, they forget about the tracks.
I figured if there was somebody to ask about that, it would be you, because you seem to do all your homework, check all the boxes. You check personal backgrounds too on the people making these claims. And what would you say is the percentage of these sightings or hoaxes?
Actual hoaxes, probably around 10%.
Oh, only 10%.
Right? Misidentifications, or probably about 30 to 40%, even 50%. And then 40%, and then probably about another 10 to 15% are kind of in the middle. You really can't determine where it lies on the spectrum. So probably the amount of I'll encounter Bigfoot is probably about around 20, maybe 25% times.
Do you think there's just one species of Bigfoot, or maybe a couple different?
I think it's hard enough to prove one species that a unidentified primate is walking the forest, let alone 4 or 5 or 6. There's a number of different, biological laws that would explain the differences in sizes and diversity amongst, primates itself.
Sure.
Bigfoot's a primate, it would fall kind of in the same diversity that we do or other primates will.
Have you had any of your own sightings?
I've had 2. One in 2011, and it was standing next to a utility pole, basically watching our campfire. And I was the only one to see it because I was the only one to walk to my car to retrieve some batteries. And I shone my flashlight around, and there it was, standing next to the utility pole. It stayed there until I kind of shook the flashlight a little bit and walked off, got my other team out. They found where it had walked into the forest. And while we're doing that, the base camp had basically said they heard some movement going on there.
So what I'm on a hunt for is from a story about a devil monkey in Danville, New Hampshire back in 2001. The story got dropped because the plane crashed into the World Trade Centers and the world forgot about it. So what I want to know is your professional opinion. Do you think that there's more than one type of ape or creature? For instance, a Sasquatch or a Sasquatch type creature with a tail. Do you believe, do you think something like that exists?
I think there's a host of paranormal, if you want to call them entities, or cryptozoological mysteries out there. There seems to be all sorts of different types of creatures, some small, some large. Lauren Coleman, I think, had documented 9 different types of hominids or hominid type, bipedal type creatures. It wouldn't surprise me if there's all sorts of different creatures out there that haven't been identified yet. We do know that they're looking at the data, there's certain times of the year, for instance in the Whitehall area, that these creatures apparently are more populous in this region. August, September, and October seem to be the hot months. Now, we don't get a lot of reports on other months, but we do get reports for other months. In fact, Dan Gordon's, which was a high-profile case, took place in February of '82. So, but yeah, there do seem to be areas that seem to be hot spots in certain times of the year. And that may be suggestive of migration, but there may be some other factor going in that we just don't consider.
All right, we're here with David. And David, you told us that you have seen Bigfoot, and it's a long story, but you're going to give us like the trailer version, correct?
Exactly right. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I possibly can. This happened in the summer of 2015. I live near Boston. It happened in a town called Weston on Church Street. I've lived there my whole life, never saw it before, haven't seen it again. Driving over this small bridge over an abandoned railroad track, I was driving with my girlfriend at the time and my sister. Someone told me, look down. there it was, standing on the edge of the abandoned railroad tracks. It wasn't standing behind a tree or in the woods. It was right there. At least 8 feet tall, 450 pounds. Just standing there watching that occasional car go over that bridge. Driving over the bridge, I said, you guys just see that? And they were too busy talking, 2 women. They're like, see what? I made a U-turn. We parked right there. We watched it for a good 5 minutes. Here's the most, I can't even talk because I get too excited about this. But here we go. This is how I know it wasn't a bear standing on 2 legs. And I know it wasn't a guy in a costume, because here we go. I saw it plain as day. Again, it was about 75 feet away, down below us. And we're sitting in the safety of our car. My sister, to this day, said she saw a silhouette of it. And I hate to use the word blurry, but she saw like a blurry silhouette of the same thing that I saw perfectly. My girlfriend at the time didn't see it at all. We all had the same exact view. How do you explain that? Here we go. I've always believed. It shows itself to you if you believe in the thing, okay? My sister's always been right down the middle of the road. She kind of saw it, but she didn't see it. My girlfriend at that time never believed in ghosts, aliens, or Bigfoot. She didn't see it at all. 3 different experiences with the same exact view. That fits like the perfect jigsaw puzzle piece, okay? So in other words, you could probably walk right by the thing, unless you might smell it, okay? You wouldn't even know it was there if you don't believe in it.
Well, let me ask you this. So I grew up deer hunting, as you do in New England, and one of the things that I noticed when I would deer hunt is I would see things that I thought were a deer or bear or whatever, but it wasn't. So, I mean, you said like if you wanted to see it, you'll see it, or do you think that sometimes maybe you think you see something because you want to see something?
Well, I wasn't even looking for it. Someone just told me, look, as I drove over the bridge, and it caught my eye. Again, it was like 8 feet tall, 450 pounds, okay? So, like I say, it was weird. The whole thing was, it's life-changing when you have this kind of experience. And I know what I saw, and I can't say this enough. I don't do drugs. I wasn't drinking, and I'm not delusional. I'm a little out there. I've seen a lot of stuff in my life. Sometimes with people, sometimes by myself. But trust me, this was the most intense moment of my life, and I'm 63 years old. It was the most intense 5 minutes of my entire life, and I've seen a lot of things and been a lot of places. But that is absolutely true story. Take it to the bank.
And at the time, were you convinced it was Bigfoot, or did you kind of have to think about it a little bit more?
It was 100% Bigfoot, man. I mean, it was the brown fur, dark brown face, longer arms. It wasn't jumping around, but you could see it was alive. It was just standing there. Like I say, it was just curious about that occasional car that was going over the bridge. Again, this was in the town of Weston, Massachusetts, on Church Street. And now today, it's a very popular rail trail. And when I go over that bridge, what do I see? All day long, there's people jogging, running, rollerblading, but usually when the sun's going down, just the same time I saw it, there's usually a very young, pretty girl with headphones on by herself going down that rail trail. I would not be doing that if I was her. If she'd seen what I'd seen, I don't think so. Okay.
Do you think Bigfoot would eat her? Like, do you think let me ask you this. Do you think Bigfoot is harmful? Is it just trying to let us live our life? Is it trying to live its own life?
That's a very good question. I think just like in the real world, there's good people and bad people. And I think some Bigfoots, whatever you want to call them, are just curious and they don't mean you any harm. Whereas others, maybe not so much, okay? I think this one was just wanted to like see the cars, you know, it didn't mean it was just curious. It was just standing there like it had never seen cars before.
And then, do you think that Bigfoot has any like supernatural powers at all?
Yeah, well, that's the ability how I could see it and my girlfriend couldn't see it at all. And she's looking at me like I'm crazy and I'm looking at her like she's crazy. It was like, how can you not see it? It's like right there. It's like, so what are you gonna do, you know?
Well, I appreciate you telling your story.
Like I say, it was a pleasure. And like I say, also that summer, I learned so many years later, one of the Weston police saw the same thing on the other side of town in a swamp. Okay, so I saw it and a cop saw it.